Jimmy Lakey on the radio. I got my coffee and cream. Jimmy's on the air. Wake up and start your day. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliance to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Heidi ho, neighbor. Nice to have all of you here. I am on the road again, as you can see, the lovely broadcast booth that we're in, and nice to have you here this morning. Top of the morning from the great state of Texas. Coffee here in the traditional hotel cup, and don't let it be forgotten that one of the things I accomplished earlier this morning is I ended up at a Whataburger, and I decided that I needed a little bit of Whataburger. So I'm in the great state of Texas. Pleasure to be here, and I hope you feel the exact same way. I really do. I used to have a hat on. I did not travel with a hat. Let me tell you about my journey. I know you don't really give a rat's patootie, but let me tell you about my journey to get here. I wanted to desperately say, Chad, we can't do the show, producer Chad, but I'm here for you. It was about 11 or 12-hour journey to get here to Texas and Dallas, and I flew. This was not a drive from Colorado where I live. This was a flight from Texas. Boarded the flight at Denver International Airport. Boarded the flight, about to push back, got kicked off the flight. The whole plane did, because a control computer had gone bad, and we had to fix that. And then we reboarded the plane, almost coming into the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, and a thunderstorm blows up right over the airport, and we get diverted because we don't have enough fuel on our aircraft from Denver to circulate or kind of go into a holding pattern. So we get rerouted to Oklahoma City, sit in Oklahoma City for about an hour. Then we come into Texas, already 3 or 4 hours past our deadline. We come into Texas, land, and I think they land us almost just the south side of Tulsa, and we have to drive into the Dallas airport. And it was a 34-minute flight from Oklahoma City into Denver, Dallas, Fort Worth International. And it was about a 45-minute wait of taxiing to get a gate. And by that time, it was almost midnight. So anyway, a long day of travel yesterday. Didn't come that far, but it took me a hell of a long time to get here. But I'm live from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. As I said, I got a family situation, a little medical thing going on, elderly parents, that happens. And that's why I've been traveling to Dallas so much lately. And here we are again this morning in a trip. But good to have you here. And we're doing the show, even though I'm bleary-eyed, because I did not get to, I think by the time I finally sat down in the hotel and said, oh, I finally made it, it was about 12 hours from when my Uber or my driver first picked me up and took me to the airport. So anyways, long day of travel just to get to Texas yesterday. And part of it was Mother Nature, part of it was incompetence. It's just a long, it's a long day. Anyway, glad to have you here on the program. Coming up on the show, we're going to be talking a little bit about these protests against ICE, these attacks on ICE. The person we talked to before about the George Floyd protest, and Miriam Heinen talks about them being a PSYOP operation, multi-layer PSYOP operation, Operation George Floyd. Are there some similarities between the protests that are happening now against ICE as those that were happening against the police back in the defund the police days of the George Floyd riots? We'll talk to Miriam Heinen coming up about with that. Spencer Morrison's going to be on the show as well. Author of a book called Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Economy, where some countries are getting what they call their final letters of tariffs. This is your rate. President Trump says he's extended some deadlines to early August, but we'll talk to Spencer Morrison about the latest tariff thing. Remember back in a couple of months ago, every time we mentioned tariff, Donald Trump did not know what he's talking about. He keeps changing the date. This uncertainty is really going to destroy things. And Donald Trump just patiently kept marching forward. And now Donald Trump changes the date on a tariff, or Donald Trump talks about tariffs. The media's even stopped freaking out about it. It's not even a lead news story. They tried their best to hype you up and separate you from your guy, Donald J. Trump, and it didn't work because Donald Trump actually proved to be a little bit more knowledgeable. Donald Trump true to be a little bit more knowledgeable than the economists are on this thing. So anyway, we'll talk more about that with tariffs coming up in the program with a fantastic guest who has been on with us before, and that is Spencer Morrison. Spencer Morrison coming up on the program. And also our aviation travel expert. Some of you love him, well, all of you love him, but some of you really love him. His name is Jay Ratliff. And Jay was not with us last week, not because we didn't think he was going to be here. He day trades, and he does his day trade fund and his stock trading, and he sets an alarm to come on with us and interrupt his day trading and fortune making right at the time that he does, which would be about 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 11 o'clock Eastern. He takes a break, and his alarm did not go off to distract him to go over to talk to Lakey. So he day traded right through our segment last week. So he sent me topics and said, I'm going to be there today. So Jay Ratliff, and before that, I was out of town. He was out of town. I was in Africa. I was traveling. So we haven't talked to Jay in probably a month, and we'll catch up with Jay Ratliff coming up here in just a moment. All right. Thank you for the well wishes, RJ. I see that. Prayers for you and your family. Our Lois is still praying for the family medical situation. You know, it's tough when you get an aging parent, and my father is long gone from the planet, but my mother is aging up there, and let's just say the last several months have been very, very interesting, and it has been a spiral in the incorrect direction, and thus I have made a lot of trips to the Dallas area, and that's what we're here for again. All right, good to have you all here on the program. I appreciate your prayers, I really do. I have a question of the day. And it goes back to a topic that I brought up yesterday in my question of the day. I have a feeling and I have a hunch, and I'm watching other people have the same hunch, that the immediate results of this Epstein thing are not out there. They haven't been manifest. But I believe this is a danger to the Trump presidency with the base, with the MAGA people, with the people that said, but I thought you would be different. Because they didn't just come out and say, you know what, we looked at the evidence wrong. They came out and just gaslit us and said, yeah, we know that Pam Bondi's talked about the list being on her desk, but now we're telling you there is no list. They have not handled this in the White House appropriately. This has not been one of their better and most stellar moments. This has been one of those that I think has raised a lot of questions. And this is where all of a sudden, after all the hype, all the campaign promises, they come out and say there is no Epstein list. And then when somebody asked about it the other day at the cabinet meeting, President Trump excoriates the asker and says, how dare you? This is incompetence. You shouldn't be asking about this. And I would say, no, you should be asking about this because this is a topic of conversation. So I want to ask you a question here this morning. Do you feel betrayed, or what is your feeling regarding the Epstein, I guess, change in attitude? What are your thoughts on the Department of Justice saying that there are no Epstein files? Do you feel like it was gaslighting? Do you feel like it's betrayal? Are some of you giving the White House some kind of, credit and saying, you know what, they're playing 3D chess. They know better than us. I'm just curious, because the more I read and the more even commentators and communicators like myself, we read it and say something's not right here. And I believe this is the first big blunder that the Trump administration, for whatever reason, has made with their base. And I think that this is it's just a bad sign in my humble opinion. So what are your thoughts on the Department of Justice saying there are no Epstein files? What are your thoughts on them saying that they don't exist? Again, I think it would be different if they had come out and made up some excuse of we were misinformed and they were erased and they can blame someone. But they didn't say any of that. They just said they don't exist after years and years of us knowing or hearing that they do exist and not willing to answer questions. I believe that Pam Bondi should have come out with a press conference and she should have been prepared for every answer. Well, what was stacked on your desk that day? What was not stacked on your desk when you said you were going to look at, they were on your desk? And I think this is a mistake. And I want to hear from what you think, because let's jump in. Rich says, not really betrayed. I'm just shaking my head. It's a definite unforced error. So let me ask you this. I want you to play this out in your head. Either the files exist, which everybody has talked about the files existing. Either the files exist or they don't, right? If the files exist and the administration is saying they're not existent and they just disappear, poof, and they handle that incorrectly, then who are they hiding for? There's a lot of people that think that they got talked to. There's speculation that the CIA and the intelligence community had worked so hard to develop blackmailable assets out there that they could control around the globe. And that if they released the documents and the files from Epstein, then it would be revealing who was on the take or who was the puppet of the American government, who was the puppet of the intelligence community. And so there's some speculation that it's protecting the deep state, the intelligence community, the intelligence agencies. You have to protect their agencies. You have to ask, if there are a list, who are they trying to protect? And why are they trying to protect those people that are on that list? And why is it that Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all these cats have all of a sudden become willing to protect those people? I read one commentator, a little rabbit trail, that they basically, Benjamin Netanyahu had come to the White House and said, hey, this is a honeypot operation for the Mossad, and let's not mess this up. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, but there's something that doesn't smell right. And I believe an unforced error is probably putting this very politely for the White House. I'm just asking you, my friends, what do you think? Do you feel like this is the first big mistake or the first big betrayal of the Trump administration by telling you these files don't exist? You have to remember that we go back, what are we just now getting the JFK files? I would bet many of you don't know what the new JFK files have said. If I asked most of you out there today that are very well informed about the JFK files, that we now have paper and people are still going over them day by day, did you know that the entire narrative that you've been told, even every documentary you ever heard, a lot of them blown out of the water? A lot of them are blown out of the water. Everything that you have been told for 60 years about JFK's assassination has basically been a lie. Lee Harvey Oswald, what was his involvement? Who are the people? If you read these new JFK files, they almost have to go redo every documentary that's ever been on the Discovery of the History Channel and every speculatory moment. It was a CIA military industrial complex coup assassination of a president of the United States. It is right there in living color in these new documents. The intelligence community and the military industrial community decided that, hey, you know what? He's going to pull us out of Vietnam. He's got these resolutions. We don't like that. He's also going to take us off he put us back up the gold standard. We're going to have real money, take away the power of the Federal Reserve. John F. Kennedy, months before his death, actually had said that they're going to come for me. They'll come for me sooner. And his quote was roughly, if they come for me, I hope at least it will give people a reason to wake up. Something along those lines. That's what John F. Kennedy did. And yet all this time we were told it was a single guy up in a school book depository who actually happened to just get a good shot in there. Well, Lee Harvey Oswald was involved. He was an asset and being watched by the intelligence community, but it is right there in plain sight. And yet now 60 years later, America doesn't seem to give a rat's patootie that we were lied to for all this time, that there is nothing else to see in the JFK assassination. There's nothing else to see here. They basically rewrote history. All this time, the government rewrote history with a fake narrative about what the JFK assassination was. And it was all a fake narrative. They were rewriting history, drilled it into your head so that 50, 60 years later, when the truth comes out, you have it so drilled in your head, you don't really care. And I think what you're watching with these Epstein files is you're watching the same thing. You're watching the government say, oh, those files don't exist. It was just a lone guy up in a school book depository, and he took the shots there, and there's nothing to see here. And they're starting the process of rewriting history. And the question becomes, who are they trying to protect? In the JFK assassination, they're trying to protect the military industrial complex and the deep state of the intelligence community in the United States. Who are they trying to protect in this Epstein file? And why do you think Trump and why do you think Pam Bondi, why do you think they are going along with it? And do you think that this is a huge blunder and a huge mistake? And does it cause you to call into question whether or not we're ever going to get the answers? It's Arloa says something, trying to believe it's 3D chess, but it's difficult. I don't, and I get that. And everybody tries to give your guy the benefit of the doubt, but I think we also have to be willing to call our guy out. And I think that when President Trump interrupted in the cabinet meeting the other day, and I love the Donald, but when somebody asked Pam Bondi about this conversation, Donald Trump did the diversionary bang explode and said, "How dare you? This is a stupid topic. You don't know what you're talking about." And he really excoriated that person for asking the question, which is actually a very legitimate question. So your question of the day is, here's Bob jumps in. Bob says, Trump should release every page of the Epstein files to prove he wasn't in them unless he was in them. Well, let me ask you this question here, and let me just bring this up. Because that's the thing. Somebody said yesterday, this gives people the opportunity to say that Donald Trump's not releasing it because he was in there. I'm one of these guys that I believe that if Donald Trump were in there, it would absolutely positively had already been released because the Democrats desperately wanted to take him down. That they wanted to get rid of his chances to ever become presidency. Forget the Russia hoax, just put his names in the Epstein file. So I don't believe, we do know that there was some interaction, and that's been documented that there was some interaction. But as far as the Lolita Express in Epstein Island, there's no proof of that. But you have to ask yourself, why is it that Trump and Bondi and Kash Patel actually had said in an interview with Glenn Beck, it's on the Glenn Beck page yesterday, he had actually said, they said it was the Epstein list. It's with the FBI director. He seemed to have a big knowledge of this Epstein list, and now they say it doesn't even exist. Somebody posted this, and this is a meme. I didn't want to post the meme. It's not really a funny meme, but it's a factual meme. No Epstein post from Nancy Pelosi. So the Trump administration decides that there is no Epstein list. You hear nothing from Nancy Pelosi. You hear nothing from Chuck Schumer. You've heard nothing on the Epstein files from Hakeem Jeffries. All of Trump's biggest enemies out there are very quiet now. All of them are very, very quiet. If they truly believe that Trump was on that list, do you think they would be this quiet? Do you truly think the detractors and the haters of Donald J. Trump, if they were on that list, that they would be so quiet right now? I think they know that it's their friends, their cohorts that are on there. But I want to just get your opinion. We've talked about it for 2 days. A lot of you are sounding off here, and a lot of you are trying to give the Trump administration benefit of the doubt. But I think this is the first big error that could go to separate people, cause mistrust within. Again, a lot of folks have been like Arloa, trying to give the president, he's playing 3D chess. They know what they're doing. They are running roughshod over people. This Epstein list thing, I think, is an unforced error, but they took it. And you have to ask yourself, why would you do that? What are they doing it? Who got to them, and why is it? Because again, they didn't say, you know what, we thought there was a list, but here's what we have. They just said there's no list. Well, we know there was something on Pam Bondi's desk 2 days in a row. We know there was something Kash Patel said was in the care of the FBI director. And so the way that they just said, change the story, rewrite the narrative, we're going to offer you no explanation, that tells me they're covering something up, and I don't really know what it is. And maybe we shall never know. Maybe it's going to be 60 years from now, like the JFK files. But again, go back and look at what's coming out of these JFK files, and you will find out that some very nasty things were done to JFK, and the government for years told you all the wrong stories about who did the JFK shooting and about Lee Harvey Oswald. So there's your question of the day as I broadcast live from Dallas, Texas, on the road again with Hotel Coffee. You're welcome. And I did get up early to go to the Whataburger because I'm in Texas. And I got my coffee, my Diet Coke. We do the show from a hotel because I'm out of town, but thank you for tuning in. Give me your thoughts. Again, if you're listening on the live stream this morning on all the platforms, about 7 different platforms and streams out there, we'd love to have you jump in on all the Instagram's the only feed that doesn't allow instant interaction. If you're on Rumble, YouTube, it shows up right here in the studio. And if you are out there in, let's just say, the podcast world, because after the show airs live, we put it on a podcast and thousands of people get to hear it. If you're out there listening to it, always feel free to email us. Obviously, you can't respond live, but you can always interact. info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. All right, let's switch gears. The question of the day is, do you feel betrayed by the Trump administration when it comes to the world of this, the Epstein files and the gaslighting and saying it doesn't exist? There's nothing to see here. I'd love to get your thoughts on that topic of conversation and see if it's the first big blunder that you think the Trump administration has made, as do I. I'm trying to understand it. I think there's some cover up here. and give me your thoughts on it. All right, let's switch gears. Let's go to tariffs. In the midst of the talk about there's no Epstein files, the Trump administration has come out and said, hey, we've sent out letters to certain countries about what their tariff rate is going to be, and these are final negotiations. We're done. We don't have time to talk to everybody. Spencer Morrison has written a great book on tariffs, and I want to give you the title of it, then bring Spencer himself into the program. It's called Reshore, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. In the green room, once again, Mr. Spencer Morrison. Spencer, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy, I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back.
Very good. I'm in Texas, so pardon the hotel decor and the hotel coffee cups, but you got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. I'm going to be traveling next week myself, so I appreciate it.
You get it. My favorite is these guys after COVID. Everybody got these home studios, and I was watching a couple of them, and they're in their kitchen, and you can see the blender and you can see the food processor behind them. And I'm like, at least I find a corner of the hotel room that has nothing on it. I don't, but it's interesting. People's home studios get very interesting. So next week, whatever your hotel studio is, make it look good.
I'll do my best. Yeah. Going to Detroit, right. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, well, just show Detroit out the window. It's a glorious place. Actually, Detroit's not as bad as
we'll find a good angle. Yeah.
find a good angle. Get the right side, not the left side. Get the lighting right. Lipstick on the pig. All right. Trump has sent out tariff letters on Truth. He said he's put some of them out on the Truth Social. I want to get your thoughts here about these letters, but I kind of think it's funny if you're a leader of the free world or you're the trade rep for a country and you have to go to Truth Social to find out what it is that your trade deal was. Well, what did he post out there? Give me your thoughts. He says he's extended the deadlines till August, but he says this is your final offer, world.
Yeah, August 1st is the new deadline, and then the tariffs are coming back in full force. Right now, remember, there's just that sort of baseline 10% tariffs in place, and there's a couple of other items and different resources that have kind of ad hoc tariffs on them. I wrote the book on tariffs. I'm a big fan of tariffs. I think President Trump is doing all the right things on this. We have 50 years of economic globalism to reverse, and that is not going to happen without high and stable tariffs. So I'm excited that we're finally coming to the end of this negotiation period. I think it's also obvious that these countries don't want to negotiate. They don't want to negotiate because they've been getting a free ride, free lunch for 20, 30, some of them 50 years. They've been piggybacking off of America's economy. So they don't want to negotiate. And that's why we've only seen, the United Kingdom, Vietnam come to the table. Ironically, there's an interim deal with China that also comes due in August. So we'll see what happens. I think that this is going to force them to come to the table, though, because everybody wants access to America's market. There's no question.
What I find interesting is the coverage we're getting. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. He moved the date to August. It was already up this week. And a couple of months ago, every time Donald Trump made a move of we're going to extend this, the media would go crazy about the uncertainty and it's going to blow up the economy and it's going to cause trade war. And now this time he's like, yeah, I'm going to give him to August 1st. And it was barely a top headline. It's as if the media blew up all their gunpowder of the gloom, doom, the sky is falling disaster when it comes to tariffs. And now has Trump proven that all these economists, all these news commentators were absolutely incorrect in what the tariffs or the threat of tariffs would do?
Yeah, totally. He totally blew up the mainstream media narrative on tariffs. There's no question about it. And he did it in a couple of ways. Number one, you remember when the tariffs came out in April, everybody says we're going to have huge inflation. Inflation's going to be crazy. You won't be able to buy anything in this country. And then, of course, look what happened. Inflation's down, right? The numbers don't lie. So, that's one big thing. These guys lost a lot of credibility on the inflation front. And then on top of that, they're saying that, the president doesn't know how to make deals. We get a couple of deals coming through. There's a pretty decent deal with China, the best one, I think that the country's ever had with China. And it's likely going to get better. There's a few things, you can always tweak a deal to make it a little better. But, the fact of the matter is that China's a tough customer, right? And to get them to agree to any tariffs is, I think, frankly, pretty impressive. So we'll see what happens in August. And, the other thing that's really important to mention here, everybody said the stock market was going to melt down. Everybody was going to lose all their money. And then we got stock market highs, right? So all of their powder is just soaking wet at this point. They got nothing left. All that's left to do is see what sort of magic the president can work.
Let me ask you this, Spencer. You wrote the book on tariffs, as you said, and let's kind of go back in history because this narrative that got spun up has obviously been dismantled and disassembled by President Trump. And even some of my conservative friends were like, oh, tariffs are taxes on the Americans. All the narratives have been blown up, thrown out the window. And yet for years, years and years, up until, in the recent history, that's how we kind of funded the government. We're on tariffs. Where did tariffs get this bad rap? What was it that caused us to, as Americans, put tariffs over in the corner as kind of the redheaded stepchild that we don't touch if we don't have to? Because it worked for America for many years, and now we pretend as if it won't, and President Trump's proving that they can.
Yeah, let's go back into history a little bit. You got to
Yes.
remember that the very first piece of legislation in America was the Tariff Act of 1789, signed off by George Washington, recommended by Alexander Hamilton, who a couple of years later wrote this amazing book called The Report on Manufactures, which outlined the American system of economic development, which was, guess what? It was all about tariffs. High protective tariffs to help American industry become independent from European industry at the time. And it was over the next 100, 150 years that America, of course, industrialized and became the most prosperous nation in the world. That was all done under high tariffs. Throughout the 1800s, America had the highest average tariff rate on planet Earth, the highest, right? It was over 30% on average. And that was in an age before we even had, trans-Pacific shipping and all of the, forklifts. It was an era before forklifts, right? And we still had 30% tariffs in place. And America became rich during that period. Now, somewhere along the line, after World War II, and especially after 1973, when the gold window was abandoned, some people in the financial sector found out that they could make an awful lot of money by creating demand for U.S. dollars. And a great way to create demand for U.S. dollars is to run a trade deficit, because when you run a trade deficit, meaning America as a whole imports more than it exports, you still have to balance out the payments somehow. And the payments are balanced out by selling either assets, so real estate, stocks, things like that, or debts. Debt, right? You sell debt.
Yeah.
So since 1974, America's run a trade deficit every single year. This has created enormous demand for U.S. dollars. In fact, if you adjust for inflation, the total demand for U.S. dollars, 28 trillion.
Wow.
That's how much money has flowed out of the country and then flowed back into Wall Street and into the national debt. So what they've essentially done is these financial elites down at Wall Street and at the Federal Reserve, they've created a huge international demand for U.S. dollars through the trade deficit. And this has essentially skimmed off money from Main Street and the productive industrial economy and plugged it right into Wall Street and the national debt. And you have to understand, $28 trillion is a lot of money, especially when it's concentrated in New York and Washington, D.C. So there's a huge economic incentive for these people to perpetuate the trade deficit. And of course, what do tariffs do? They reduce the trade deficit over time. That's the point. So we're, what President Trump is doing is he's striking right at the heart of the issue, and he's cutting off the gravy train to Wall Street, and they hate it. They hate it, and that's why they're funding all these think tanks. They're funding all these media, all this media hits on tariffs because they want to keep the gravy train flowing.
I was thinking just a bit ago before you came on, talking about the Epstein files, the JFK files, and 60 years later, we find out that the narrative that they gave us was really a fake narrative about JFK. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald was a part, but I mean, they lied to us for 60 years. All turns out to make sure that we could stay at war in Vietnam and we didn't have to ditch the Federal Reserve. I mean, all of that 60 years of lie, killing your president, was to protect the military industrial complex and the intelligence industrial complex. On a different sense, it seems as if we have people in the government willing, and economists beholden to the government, willing to tell any lie, cross any threshold, cross any Rubicon in order to keep the fake narrative going on about tariffs, because it interrupts not the military industrial complex, but the Wall Street industrial complex. It messes with them. It messes with the people with the power and the money.
That's exactly it. And President Eisenhower warned about this before leaving office. He warned about the military-industrial complex. And the military-industrial complex is tied to the financial-industrial complex. I mean, all of this is bought and paid for by financing debt, right? So we have to export that debt to foreign countries. And in order to do that, you have to create demand again for U.S. dollars. And there's not really any better way to do that than by, selling out the American people.
Yeah.
I mean, they created demand for $28 trillion. 28, this is like a whole year of GDP, right? It's a tremendous amount of money.
Wow. So you bring the tie, and I never thought of that, but you bring the tie that it is kind of the same, the financial industrial complex and the military industrial complex. It all relies on the same thing. And so what we're discovering, these people that spread bad narratives about the Kennedys or the Epstein files or whatever, or they spread negative, nasty comments on tariffs, and the truth about them is not really told, and the history of them is not really told. Are they just simply... is this the deep state manipulating us and controlling the masses so that they can get their way?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, these issues are all tied together. And one of the things that ties them all together is money, right? So you got to follow the money. Where's the money flowing? The money is flowing out of the country, being rinsed, and then coming back into Wall Street. People are profiting off of it. And it's the exact same people who are funding the endless wars. It's the exact same people who are involved in, well, I mean, and you look at what JFK stood for, right? What JFK stood for. One of the things he was opposed to was this, was sort of central banking. He was in favor of the gold standard, which, and for people who don't know this, the gold standard puts sort of an organic cap on the amount you can export because you have to balance it out in gold. So if you're on a true gold standard, you can't actually run an infinite trade deficit. It just doesn't work. It's not possible under the gold standard, right? So it was important for these guys to get off of the gold standard entirely, because that essentially freed them up to print unlimited fiat currency and then, of course, export that American debt all across the world.
Spencer Morrison is my guest. We'll get a couple more moments with him. The name of his latest book is called Reshore. Reshore, How Tariffs will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. I kind of talked about where we're at, the strategy by President Trump. We have the big, beautiful bill that's supposedly putting some tax cuts in place permanently and doing some very good things from what we can see. We have the tariff program, which is going to become finalized by the 1st of August. Are we on the right track, in your estimation, Spencer Morrison, to see some of this money finally trickle down to the folks on Main Street and get out of the hands of Wall Street? Are we on the right step, or does the Trump administration need to do more?
President Trump needs to work with Congress in order to get Congress to codify all of the tariffs and the executive orders. If that doesn't happen, the resurgence of American manufacturing, it will die with President Trump's term. There's no question, because Congress has been and are currently opposed to tariffs, and they're really at the core of who's selling out America, right? So President Trump needs to use all of his leverage, all of his power to get Congress to pass tariff legislation. If that doesn't happen, President Trump can do amazing things, but again, he's only got 4 years.
Anybody who reads your title of the book, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream, says, well, that's not what that person on television said. That's not what the talking head said. That's not even what my conservative heroes said about what tariffs will do. They said it's a taxation and it's going to be paid by the American people. I want you to unpack that a little bit more, how tariffs will bring our jobs home and revive the American dream. And I assume teaching that lesson is why you wrote the book in the first place.
That's exactly it. I mean, this book is part economic history. It's part theory. But the core of the book is practical solutions on how we can solve these economic problems, right? And ultimately, we have sort of an 80-20 principle solution here. We can put in high and stable tariffs. That's going to do about 80% of the job for us. Of course, you can always do better. There's more things that you can do, like lowering the cost of energy, for example, would be important. Lowering the cost of raw materials, reducing regulations, reducing taxes. That's all great. Ultimately, that's not going to solve the problem of externalities. That is, sort of differences in prices between different countries. For that, you need tariffs. If you don't have tariffs, it's not going to happen, right? So people need to understand that. And, I go into that in a lot of depth in the book. I explain exactly how tariffs worked historically to make America rich. And then I go into, of course, the economic theory behind it. Why, it worked 100 years ago. Is it still going to work today? Yeah, of course, because the underlying fundamentals are the same.
The name of the book is called Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Spencer, real quick, the, I guess, leading indicators or that we will see if we know that the Trump tariff negotiation and or strategy is working. How will the average American know? The media may be saying it's all gone to hell in a handbasket. How will the average American know that it's working?
I think the best indicator to make sure that it's working is to follow the news on proposed investments, greenfield investments. Are the factories coming back? What's the employment rate doing? Those are the things we want to look at. I mean, everybody looks to the stock market. Don't look to the stock market, because the stock market is inflated by the trade deficit because of the balance of payments, because all that money that's pouring in. If reshoring is working and tariffs are actually bringing the jobs home, which they should and they will, provided Congress doesn't completely undermine the agenda, of course, right? You're going to see a lot. You're going to see a lot of jobs. You're going to see a lot of investment, and hopefully, the proliferation of healthy rural communities. So that's what we want to look at. Don't look to the stock market as your barometer. Look to your communities. Look to the employment rate.
Editor-in-chief of the National Economics Editorial. Also, the name of the book is called Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. If folks want to get a copy of the book, I'm sure Amazon, all the great places are there, but you're also online. Spencer, how do folks find you?
Yes, sir. So if people want in-depth information, you can go on my Substack. It's at Real SB Morrison. I've got articles coming out there 2-3 times a week. And then, of course, on X, Twitter, Real SB Morrison. You can find all my stuff there. I link everything.
You got it, Spencer. I appreciate you. Congrats again on the book. It's a pleasure talking to you as always. And again, the name of the book, Spencer Morrison, Reshore. And thanks for hopping on the program. And the entire title of the book is called Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Economy. And I'm telling you, my friends, everything you probably have heard and talked about and heard conservatives, liberals, everybody talking about with the tariffs probably is untrue. And if you want some of the history of the tariffs in America, how they worked before, how they were previously successful, etc., you need to read the book. It's got a lot of history and it's got a lot of prognostication about what could happen in these days of Donald J. Trump. Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. So get a copy, Spencer Morrison as well. Look him up on the Substack. All right, in just a second, we've got a great guest going to talk about our elections in America, and specifically doing a little bit of work in the state of Colorado, where I happen to usually broadcast from. I'm not broadcasting from there now. That is coming up. Sorry, I'm getting all my guests here all squared away. Also, Martley Hamlick's going to be on talking about election integrity as well. So everybody stand by. I got a lot of great guests coming up on the program. But before that, can I take you back to Africa, our charity? Usually I have the charity background in front of me, or one of our sponsors, Rivers Promise, that I started in Rwanda. I want to show you, I'm asking, and I'm going to do the big unveil here. And I mentioned this yesterday. I want to show a quick video of this. Was me a couple of weeks ago in Africa. And I am asking you to help us fill out our 5th grade classroom. As you know, we're building Legacy Christian Academy. Legacy Christian Academy is a fantastic school. Going to become one of the top schools in Rwanda. Of course, I started the charity in Rwanda based on a promise to my son, who's adopted from there. And we have a 4th grade class now. We're building up on this campus to 6th grade. And this year we're adding our 5th grade. And I'm asking, here's what I'm asking. 30 people over the next 7 days, 30 people that watch this show, thousands of earballs hear this on the podcast, the streamcast, the livecast every day. I'm asking 30 people to donate $175 to buy the desk, the chairs, and the supplies that we need for that classroom for 30 5th graders that are coming up from 4th grade. They've been in our school, and I'm asking for your help to do that. You can go to riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Here I am 3 weeks ago, in the actual classroom. It's the final remaining space in our existing one building. We got to build more buildings, but this is where the 5th graders are going to go. This is where your gift will go and put the desk and the school supplies. And there'll be a whole bunch of 5th graders in here in just a couple of weeks. I'm asking for 30 people to help me with $175. And you work that out, and that stocks the class. We have to hand build the desks, the chairs, and we have to buy the supplies for the classroom. And here we go. Watch this. Hey, everybody. It's Jimmy, and I am inside Legacy Christian Academy. This is one empty classroom we have left in this building. And next year, it's going to be filled with kids. It's going to become our 5th grade, P5, primary 5. Every year we're adding a grade, and our P4 is full, so get ready. We're going to ask for your help here to help us fill this room with desks and all the supplies the 5th graders are going to need. So stand by, get ready. P5 coming soon. See the excitement in that camera? It's very exciting. P5, this is the room. That is the room, and I'm asking for 30 people the next 7 days that will help us with $175. And guess what? The amount is better than we thought because, well, we're already there. I'm committing to do that. Producer Chad messaged me yesterday. He and his wife are going to do a desk. So we need 28 more people to help producer Chad and I get across there. Just donate at riverspromise.org. 30 people, 175 stocks the 5th grade classroom. All right, we got them backlogged. We have some people a little late to the table this morning because of connection issues, I understand. So let me real quick go to Marley Hornick of Unite for Freedom, Real Vote, REAL, Real Vote. Marley is in the green room first. Marley, how are you? Good morning.
I'm great, Jimmy. It's very nice to meet you. Thanks for your patience today.
No problem. I know I think the connection sometimes the first time can be interesting. We appreciate you jumping in here. First of all, talk about Unite for Freedom and Real Vote. I know obviously people across America hear the show throughout the day and on the podcast, but we have a lot of folks in my base in Colorado. You're working some things in Colorado, but first of all, talk about the overall organization, Unite for Freedom, Real Vote.
Sure. Well, we're a coalition of individuals who came together just through our skill sets, our love for our country, basically looked at the election issues that are going on across the country. And we were trying to find a way in that was not just, yelling and shouting and ordering people around and claiming this, that, and the other thing, like as if anybody really knows what's happening. So we actually took our analytics skills, we took our computer programming skills. Our data and analytics team has 700 plus years of credentialed expertise in big data and auditing analysis. And so we took all of that knowledge base, and as volunteers, we started investigating the official records of certified federal elections across now 25 states, so half the country. And what we discover in state after state after state is this really terrifying and very unsettling level of uncertainty. The records are riddled with what could be error, it could be clerical, or it could be fraud, it could be breached databases, it could be espionage. Nobody really knows what the problem is. But what Unite for Freedom does is we work to try to bring these issues to election officials across these states. We discover without fail that they have no interest in the problems that they're sitting on top of, and frankly, they're responsible for. And so in many states, we have filed lawsuits demanding that the states come into compliance with not only federal law, not only state law, but the United States Constitution, Jimmy, because the third sentence says that it is the people of the several states who choose our representatives. And frankly, what our audits show is that nobody knows how these people are getting chosen. There's so much uncertainty in the records these are the only records. This is all they got. And nobody knows. They don't know. And so when they certify elections, they are lying. And now they've been notified that that's the case, and they still don't want to do anything about it.
Marley Harnick is my guest, and Unite for Freedom and Real Vote is the name of the organization. Unite, the number 4, freedom.com. Marley, I want to have you on where we can talk more in depth about this. I know we had a little slow connection this morning, but let me ask you this. You mentioned 25 states. Which of the states is most egregious? And let's just start. I know you and I were connected by friend Brian Maloney because of your work in Colorado. Is Colorado one of the most egregious states when it comes to election certification and really not having a real clue what we're doing?
Colorado is in an average state of disarray, which is to say horrific. And we filed a lawsuit in Colorado in August of 2024. Asserting over 1 million material errors and violations of election law that could be considered election fraud if they don't have an actual explanation at the state level. We filed that lawsuit against Jenna Griswold and against your attorney general. And we're actually about to file a new motion in that lawsuit on July 20th. This is a really, really important case. Colorado is a mess because of your mail out ballot circumstance. When you mail every voter a ballot, a live ballot, it's like mailing every, kindergartner a $100 bill. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Have you followed the story where Jenna Griswold is now being looked at by the Justice Department because her office leaked out the passwords to these voting machines that were supposedly unsinkable like the Titanic, and yet she's putting the passwords out there for everything. Give me your thoughts on that. Jenna Griswold's an incompetent boob is what she is.
She's more than incompetent at this point. I think that she's malicious. Now, do I have evidence, hard evidence to show that she's malicious outright? No. What I can say is that this woman who has been sitting over this administrative disaster, it was reported to her in 2023, or rather in January of 2024, all of this information reported to her comprehensively. And what's Colorado doing about it? Well, they put Tina Peters in jail, and they, distributed these passwords. Like you're saying, the Titanic is such a good analogy. I love that. I'm going to use that again, Jimmy. I'll give you credit.
Please, anytime.
But that's really, they act like if they just double down on this idea that there's nothing to see here, then we'll stop arguing that they are defrauding the American people. But that's what they're doing. They are denying the American people and the citizens of Colorado the right to choose their representatives, and to cover up for this disaster that they've created for themselves out of whatever. Is it outright malice? Is it laziness? I have no idea. So they go after Tina Peters and throw a Gold Star mom in prison so they don't have to say, oh gosh, wow, it looks like we're screwing up over here, which they are.
Again, the voice of Marley Hornick, and again, Unite for Freedom, Real Vote. Marley, we'll get you back on real soon because I want to follow up with the Tina Peters thing. There's a kind of a thread of continuity running through my show. 60 years later, we find out the government was lying to us about the JFK assassination. Now we find out they're saying, hey, there's no Epstein file, not at all, nothing to see here. Well, you've said there was no, shut up, there's no Epstein file. And the same thing, they do the same thing about elections. Oh, the elections are secure and don't ask questions. And then we find out as we go down the road, if we'll continue to be brave, we find out that the government in all of these instances was lying the entire time. We just have to have organizations like yours that are brave enough to point it out and realize that they'll tell us what they tell us doesn't exist actually does.
Yeah. And if we want the rights that we are guaranteed in our United States Constitution of life, liberty, and property, or the pursuit of happiness, we cannot simply take their word for it any longer. There's no clause in the Constitution that says we have to take Jenna Griswold's word for it just because she has a title. Tom Paine was the one who said, hey, don't ever capitalize these people's titles. Always use lowercase letters so they don't get a big head, because they're no different than you and I. I just had the privilege of being in Venice, Italy, actually, and I was going through the Doge's palace of all places, right? Ironic with the Doge that we're dealing with in the US right now. They have an entire room dedicated to what they called the censori, which was the auditors. This was a group of political appointees or elected, I'm not exactly sure how they got into their positions, but they were constantly cycling through. So if there were 20 of them, there was always 2 of them that were going out and 2 of them incoming. So there was a stability in their system. These guys were allowed in any room at any time. They were allowed to oversee any proceeding. There was no such thing as secrecy in Venice, and they maintained their republic for 1,000 years. Total dominance, naval and territorial dominance of their republic for 1,000 years, because there was no secrets. No authority was allowed to be, just claim something like you're talking about with the Epstein files or with JFK, all of these things. It's like, on what grounds are they just going to tell us this stuff? They publish it as a headline, and we're so dumb sometimes. We're like, hey, let's go get a latte and ignore the government, but at our own peril.
And if you bring up, election stuff like you bring up, you're an election denier, conspiracy theorist, and they try to shame us back to the corner, but screw them. We shall not be shamed. Let's get you back on the program. I know you had a little slow time connecting this morning, so we're running a few minutes late, but I wanted to make sure we got you in here. Marley Hornick is my guest. Unite for Freedom and Real Vote. If folks want to go to the website, I guess unite4freedom.com. Until we meet again, Marley.
Great. Thank you so much, Jimmy. And thanks again for your patience today. Sorry about that.
You got it. I understand. It happens.
Honored to be with you.
Yeah, but we'll get you back on next week. Marley Hornick is my guest. I think you're in town. We'll find out. We'll check all that out. All right. Good to have all of you here on the program. Running a couple of seconds late. I do know that. But I wanted to get Marley in. She was confirmed, but I didn't see a connection. That she got connected. So that's very, very good. All right. If you wonder where my background is, I'm in a hotel in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that's why I'm drinking out of a Whataburger cup. Props to the peeps right there, and hotel coffee cups. That's what I'm doing. All right. Speaking of, you can't believe what the government tells you to do and what the government often tells you to. There's a theme running through the show that's kind of accidental, but it's on purpose as well. Miriam Heinen is my guest. She's been on before. Author of a book called Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered psyop exposed, also the director of the accompanying documentary. Miriam, welcome back to the program. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, Jimmy. Hi. Howdy to you.
Howdy. Good. I'm in Texas, so howdy is an appropriate answer here today. Miriam, good to have you here on the program. I want to dive into this thing because back several years ago, everybody defund the police, go to the street, stand up for the against the man, and all the stuff. Now we're seeing these protests are attacking ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. They're attacking ICE on the streets. They're saying we ought to defund ICE, get rid of the Border Patrol. Is it the same narrative? We have the same narrative, just kind of a different target of the narrative here. Was the police, the local police, law enforcement, and now it happens to be our Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer. This is the same game plan. Who's implementing it?
It's the same playbook. Yes. Who's the same people, the government and the forces behind the government. And it's in my book, I look at Tavistock, incrementalism, and the long game that is in place, because the true agenda is transhumanism. It's Agenda 2030. I believe this golden age that we're supposedly going to be experiencing under Trump, it's just a volley. It's two sides of the same coin. They feed off of one another. And I'd like to cite the Hope experiment, where they take the rodents and they drown them, which was akin to the 4 years of the Rona regime, and then they put them on land, and they don't go another hour or 2 or 5. They go another 50 to 80 hours, which is akin to the next 4 years, where we are tracked and traced. And George Floyd, it's unfortunate that people have fatigue, because my book, which has put my life in danger, has been censored, and there must be a reason. There must be something, boys and girls, they don't want you to read.
Yeah. Let's talk about the things they don't want us to know. I kind of accidentally stumbled on a theme here today. 60 years ago, the JFK assassination files, there's nothing to see here. It's one guy, blame Lee Harvey Oswald. Don't ask any questions. Now we find out it was a government operation all along. Military, industrial, intelligence community did it. This week we have the government coming out and say, oh, those Epstein files, poof, look at the light. They don't exist. They're not here. What do you mean they're not here? They were on your desk, Pam Bondi. Shh, they don't exist at all. And it's kind of the same thing they did with George Floyd. This is what you will believe. This is what it was about. George Floyd was just this poor guy that got taken down by Popo. The government likes to set a lot of fake narratives, don't they?
Yes, they sure do. And they are in cahoots with Hollywood, and anyone who's seen Game of Thrones or any other elaborate series, look at all the details. And I was shown, before discovering Tavistock, I was shown pages being turned out, passed around. And I got access to 200 plus internal emails between the MPD and the Minnesota government. And I was right. There were talking points, and everybody's just doing your job, right? And people just care about what's in front of them. They don't have a macro perspective or a visionary. This, Jimmy, colossal book, which is a whodunit deep state thriller, is for the future records. I realize now I was assigned. This is dark stuff. It was like the Heath Ledger effect, where it slowly swallowing, because I cover medical freedom and have since 2012, and transhumanism plus George Floyd equals no bueno for me, the bee lady. It's not been, and there's different ways that they can come after you. They can digitally assassinate you, which is what they've done with me. I don't think it's average to be banned on Venmo, Vimeo, PayPal, GoFundMe, Instacart, Amazon. I'm banned on Amazon, even though my book is on there. I still have KDP, Instacart, Airbnb, smeared on national television, and persecuted by the government. Is this average? So they don't want people to wake up, and we're distracted by the clown world. And in truth, I really have come to the conclusion to turn within and get your house in order and value family and love, and of course health, which has nothing to do with Rockefeller medicine.
Let's get to the name of the book here in just a second. Mariam, let me ask you this. People hear us talk like this and they go, well, why would the government want to spread a false narrative about George Floyd? What was the play? What was there to gain? Why are they afraid for the truth to come out? Explain that to people who might be skeptical.
Well, this is like a Russian doll. You open one up and you find another one. And I say in my book that if George Floyd was a stone, he would be killing a lot more than 2 birds. And to look at what's happening with these, fake riots or manufactured, that under the Derek Chauvin trial, there was a lot of surveillance that was instituted. Hennepin County looked dismal, dystopian, and it was not a fair trial because Derek Chauvin represents we, the people. People in these operations, the parties are compartmentalized. Not everyone has the full script, so to speak, and they're just doing their job and they are disposed of. And so arguably, both George and Derek were operatives, and they do not want me to tell you that. And we have a movement to free Derek. But does anyone know the status of Derek? Why is me the only person who's speaking to John Tursak, stranger, the man who stabbed him? Why? Why hasn't anyone put me? I'm an award-winning journalist with a #1 Vanishing of the Bees was a #1 movie in this entire country. English isn't even my first language. It's French. And I come from Montreal, Canada. So I worked hard. I never thought I would reach a glass ceiling because who was really looking at the details? So this was also used. We went from virus to violence, as I like to say, overnight. This was even used to get jabs into the arms of the #1 vaccine hesitant community, Black people. Yeah. Oh, look, the government cares about racism. Maybe this jab is safe. But the truth is, this has nothing to do with racism. So maybe as a brown woman, I can get away with saying things. I have been called a white supremacist. However, Maurice, who I'm also speaking to in jail, was sent under the bus. But the bus, Benjamin Crump doesn't care about his Black life. Why is that? And, George did the same shenanigans the year before. If they went to him and said, we'll make you Rodney 2.0, just throw in I Can't Breathe, which was recirculated from Eric Garner, and people forget. But that slogan was brought into awareness yet again as we were put under face diapers.
Yeah.
So I think the American people should be pissed off.
There's so much in the book. As you said, it's a deep dive. It's called Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered psyop exposed. You're also the director of the Real Timeline, which is accompanying that documentary of Operation George Floyd. Tease a little bit more, then people got to get a copy of the book. You said George Floyd had been involved in this type of operation about a year before, but the second time he had to throw in, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Explain that, because people are like, oh, I thought he was just this poor guy in front of the store.
Well, it was hidden from the masses that was a sting operation the year before. And nobody knows that George was a truck driver, and there's a corridor running drugs from Minneapolis, from Texas to Minnesota. And so if he was an operative and he was an amalgamation of 3 different people for the persona of, giving an excuse of like, oh, let's turn this university to George Floyd University and rewrite history, which is what is happening, which is what happens under a color revolution. So he lived in a federal public complex. A lot of times, it's all like informants. Maurice was an informant. It's the same thing that they do, get blackmail on you and you become their bitch. And John Tursak is no exception. And I believe that this information is dangerous because when you see how deep and dark and thorough this is, and it's incrementalism, it's happening slowly, but they have a long-term view. And it's the system. The system is a machine, and people just do their job without looking at the bigger picture. While we lose our freedoms, folks.
Miriam Heinen, if folks want to get a copy of the book, they haven't made it easy, meaning the folks that don't like this book. How can people get a copy of the book and follow you?
I found it. Thank you. I got it on Amazon, so people can get an ebook or a soft cover, and also you can come to my site, maryamhenein.com, MaryamHenein.com. I'm a functional medicine coach and intuitive, so I'm focusing more on helping people thrive and live their best lives and find their soul's purpose, because I'm not able to be a journalist anymore and make a living.
Miriam Henein, I appreciate you hopping on the program. Again, the name of her latest book is called Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered PSYOP exposed, and director of an accompanying documentary called The Real Timeline. Just look up her website and go check her out, Miriam. I appreciate you hopping on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, as you might have gathered, I am not in our normal studio. I had to make a last-minute trip unplanned as of yesterday. I had to make a last-minute trip to Texas. Got a little family situation with some medical issues of an aging parent. That is just a joyous time of life for sure. That's why I just tell you, that's why I've been in Dallas so many times the last several months. But hey, always cheer up when you're in Dallas, because you stop by the Whataburger. Even early in the morning, you stop by the Whataburger and you get yourself that is a large Diet Coke, my friends. But it's Whataburger, so it's always better when it's in a Whataburger cup. All right, glad to have all of you here. Jimmy Lakey is my name. Aviation and travel expert Jay Ratliff is in the green room. Here he is, my friends. Jay Ratliff, good morning, sir. How are you?
Pleasant good morning. I'll be praying that everything goes well down in Dallas. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, sir. Jay, we've got your first round of sponsorships for our golf tournament. 6-hole Ratliff is what we call you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Golf
We're working to get the other 3, and I told you down the road I want all 18 holes to ourselves. So we'll work on that.
I appreciate it. If you want to sponsor our golf tournament, it's coming up September 5th. Go to riverspromise.org, click the event tab, and you'll see it up there, and you can sponsor. There's lots of sponsorship opportunities. Jay, we appreciate you. Jay, I want to dive into a couple of topics, but let me give you my journey last night. I got to the airport in Denver at about 1 o'clock, caught a flight. We're boarded the flight, about to back off. Oh, never mind. The cockpit control computer just went out. 45 minutes of trying to trouble fix it. We got to replace it. We get off the plane in Denver. They replace the computer. We get back on the plane in Denver. We finally take off towards Dallas. Should be about an hour and 20-minute flight. Oh, crap. We're a little bit too close to the airport, and there's a storm over the airport. We don't have enough fuel to circulate. We're going to have to reroute to Oklahoma City. We've landed in Oklahoma City to refuel. Then we take off. And we have about a 28-minute flight from Oklahoma City back to Dallas, but then we park on the east side of the airport, and it's a 28-minute flight Oklahoma City to Dallas, but it's a 45-minute wait for the gate in Dallas. All that being said, I got to the airport in Denver yesterday at about 1 o'clock, 1:30, and I got to my hotel room in Dallas at about 1 in the morning.
And you know how the airlines look at that? We got you there safely. Yeah, it's, of course, you can't control the weather. The mechanical things, you want them to fix before the plane takes off. And I'll never forget my years at the airport, Jimmy, where passengers would yell at me when I would tell them that the airplane is being delayed or canceled because of a mechanical situation. And they would say, well, you just don't have enough people flying. That's why you canceled it. In essence, they were calling me a liar. And I wanted to say, but I never could, do you want me to put you on an airplane that is not safe to fly? I mean, is that why you're yelling at me? Because we're trying to protect you and keep you safe? You could think it, you just couldn't say it. So you would just, professionally just smile and let them go on and on and on. But at least you made it there okay. And hey, it's a lot faster than you been driving.
Actually, it's a 12 or 13-hour drive.
Oh, well.
I actually probably could have driven it, but I wouldn't have had to drive through West Texas, which is not my favorite part of Texas. So, and Eastern Colorado. So I much better to do that, but it was a long day. And if my eyes are a little puffy, it's because you got to wind down. You can't just go to your hotel, fall fast asleep. You got to wind down a little bit. And I didn't really put my bags down in the hotel at about 1 a.m. So it was a long, long day yesterday. All right, Jay, let's dive into a couple of other topics that you have sent me. And boy, there's a lot of stuff because we haven't talked in a few weeks, but let's talk with our shoes. I'm TSA pre-check, stopped taking my shoes off years ago. But evidently all the other plebes out there have been taking their shoes off, and maybe they don't have to anymore.
Yeah, the general queue, the non-TSA side of things, that's been exactly the case. And it's been announced that we are in the general queue now, no longer going to be required to take off our shoes for the screening process. And this has been in place for the better part of 20 years. And one of the reasons that we had to do it, or they had to do it all those years ago, was the old magnetometers that we used to walk through. There was a space of just a few inches at the bottom that in essence was a dead zone. So if you had something in your shoes and you kind of scuffled through, it wouldn't be detected. Now, if you ever want to get a lot of attention at the TSA checkpoint back then, just shuffle through there and they'd be like, come back, because they would want to make sure that you walked through normally so that if there was anything in your shoes, it could be detected. So when we started doing that, I certainly understood why. In fact, at the time, there was also that same dead zone at the very top. And so people had hats and different types of things. The hats came off, all in the realm of safety. And I was totally okay with that. Well, the technology's gotten better so that we can now go ahead and expedite people through there a little bit faster, which is certainly going to be nice. And I like it from a cleanliness standpoint because those floors are so filthy. And in the summer, people got flip-flops, sandals, what have you. They just slide those things off and those sweaty feet just walk across the floor. And, you get to follow about 17,000 people maybe before that floor gets clean. So I'm just glad for that as far as it being done that way. And, if it's true that we're going to see a doubling in travel over the next 10 years, we've got to do things to speed things up at the airport. And that's why you and I've talked before about them going through that facial recognition, where you could use facial recognition one day, if you so choose, at the ticket counter, at the TSA checkpoint, and at the gate to get you through your process a little bit faster. So I'm glad to see the TSA did it. And it's long overdue as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I don't know how long ago that technology changed, but I'm glad the technology changed. I'm just, for all the people taking off their shoes, God bless you. You've been putting up with it longer than you probably should have had to endure. I figured out, you mentioned a lot of more people traveling than ever before. And the last couple of weeks I've been flying in and out of Denver International Airport quite a bit. And that has to be, we should do this whole show on this, the worst designed airports in America. Denver International has to be one of the worst airports because everything is built on a bottleneck. Usually you go into the airport, you drive to Terminal A, you park there at Terminal B. Denver, every airline parks at the main terminal. Every airline screams at the same screening, and everybody crams on, and then they disperse you out from there. It builds a bottleneck going in, and to get the baggage claim, it builds a bottleneck going out. Throw this kind of a wrench at you. Is there any other airport? Most airports don't want bottlenecks. Denver International Airport wants a bottleneck, and with more people going ever than before through Denver, it's become a real mess.
Well, when it was, originally designed, I think from a capacity standpoint, it made sense. But a lot of times when you're developing these airports, the idea is, okay, if we grow, if we expand, if we need to add additional runways, more airlines come, more passengers, how are we going to grow? Because to create that city, which is what you're doing as far as an airport, there's a great deal of planning that takes place. And you've got an idea of what the travel patterns could be 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years from now. And you have to make sure you design something that's going to accommodate that. Sadly, that's not the case. Now, you have some airports like Dallas, 17,500 acres that, the issue is not bottleneck. It's, it's a 450 cab ride to get from one side of the airport to the other. Like Minneapolis, you walk forever to get to where you're at. That's what we're used to. But there's some airports that are just condensed like that really becomes problematic when you're talking about any sort of growth prospect, because you just don't have the room to do so. That means they've got to find better ways to do things and become a little bit more creative. Don't know if the folks in Colorado can do it. I'm certainly hoping so, because they're going to have to, because you can't see 30% more traffic go through that airport, I don't believe, without seeing some very significant operational delays.
Yeah. Speaking of operational delays, I talked about mine last night. An 11-hour trip, airport to airport or airport to hotel in Dallas to Denver or Denver to Dallas. British Airways passengers forced to endure a 7-hour delay on the ground during a mechanical situation. I'll let you talk about 7-hour delay for the Brits.
Yeah, they were on the airplane, ready to go, and they had an air conditioner fuse in the cockpit that tripped. It went out. So they brought in the mechanics, and it was a 30, 40-minute delay as far as getting everything, from what I understand, to the aircraft, which was fine, because you're not going to take everybody off the airplane and put them back on, because that could be a 1 to 1.5 hour process. So you keep everybody there so they can fix it and you can go quickly. Problem was, the fix didn't happen that fast. And it was delay after delay after delay. Some passengers say, now, Jay, why would they keep us on the airplane for 7 hours? Well, obviously, British Airways didn't think it was going to be a 7-hour fix, because they know typically when this particular maintenance issue happens, it requires X amount of minutes. So they can decide, do we take passengers off or do we not? So it's a lot like if you had to change the tire, which we know could be 90 minutes or so on an aircraft. We'll get everybody off, change the tire, get them back on. But in this situation, it was just one of those creeping delays. It just kept going and going and going. And it got so bad that some of the passengers on board the aircraft were starting to have medical episodes. So they had to call the fire department to show up to tend to the people. They're still, at the airport.
Oh, and my.
What happened was the firefighters walked in and said, whoa, this air inside this aircraft is toxic. Get everybody off this airplane now. So it wasn't British Airways who said, after 7 hours, we'll get you off. They were ordered by the fire department. Apparently, the air that was being circulated through the cabin comes from the engines. And apparently some of the fumes had started to accumulate. And I guess if you're in there, it just slowly builds up. You don't notice it. But when those firefighters walked in, it hit them in the face. And they said, get everybody off this airplane now. And they did. So, here in the United States, airlines are going to be in a lot of trouble from the Department of Transportation if we have any delay in excess of, in essence, 3 hours, generally speaking. So there's a window there. And airlines know, we don't want to get close to that, because we don't want to perhaps incur some sort of a fine. Once that penalty was put into place, airlines did a lot better job of making sure we don't board until we have to, and giving passengers the opportunity to get off if there is a severely delayed flight. These folks were trapped for 7 hours on a plane, and they didn't even go anywhere.
Our pilot, at least in Denver yesterday, we were all boarded, ready to go, buckled in, safety demonstration done, computer fails. But he said, hey, we're going to get you off this plane because this could take an hour. He got us off the plane. It only took 35 or 40 minutes, but he still got us off the plane. And I'm grateful for that, because 7 hours. Well, I was on there 7 hours, but not stuck.
Yeah. In a weather situation, we're reluctant to let everybody off. If we have thunderstorms that are coming through an area, sometimes a window will pop open where we have maybe 15 to 18 minutes of a window that we can dispatch flights before the storm kind of, blocks us off. So if you've got everybody on the airplane and you're ready to go, and air traffic control says, hey, we can get you going, taxi to runway such and such, and let's get going, that's great. If you let everybody off the airplane, which is what everybody wants, and then you were told you've got 20 minutes to get this wind, you're not going to make it. So that's one of the reasons that from a logistics standpoint, we keep people on the airplane. It's not to be mean. It's just from an operational standpoint, it's a lot more, we can expedite the process as getting everybody out of there many times, because sometimes you miss that window from a weather standpoint. It could be another 2 hours before you're able to take off safely. So that's why you want to maximize those opportunities as much as the rules will allow you to keep people on board the airplane.
Jay Ratliff, aviation and travel expert. Jay, I had some delays yesterday, mechanical, and then a weather delay in landing. What is it like to move around the country today, sir?
I got my notes here. We had issues in Minneapolis, New York, Atlanta, and Charlotte, but I think the real problem child of the day has been and continues to be Boston. A lot of rain, wind, limited visibility, really creating an issue. And of course, for people saying, well, Jay, that's going to affect me because I'm going south or going west. Well, if those planes that you're going to be on are going to be routed through these affected areas, it could prove to be a problem. Seeing a lot of days where we're at 2.9, even 3 million people being screened every day at the airport. So if you are flying, please get there as far as walking in the door 2 hours before departure and then get to the gate as quickly as you can. That way, if there's a gate changer things, because there's a lot of fluid stuff that's going on right now. And this is not the time you want to play the game of let's see how close we can cut it getting to the airport, because perhaps your bags or you may not make that flight. And remember, airlines are changing that minimum amount of time to check in at the counter. It used to be if you're there 30 minutes before departure, your bags and you can go. Some airlines have increased that to 45 minutes and 60 minutes. So if you've not flown for a while, make sure from the airline standpoint what time that cutoff is, because if it's an hour and you get there 45 minutes, chances your bags won't make it. Perhaps you're not going to be allowed to fly, and you don't want to take that chance.
Jay Ratliff, aviation travel expert, jratliff.com, RATLAFF, jratliff.com. Go back to day trading, my friend. Go make some money at the market.
Yeah, we're busy at it, brother. So good seeing you.
Got it. Appreciate you. jratliff.com, jratliff.com, RATLAFF, jratliff.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will be here in the Dallas area again tomorrow. I want to remind you a couple things. We'll do the meme roulette real quick here and get that going, but I do want to remind you that I'm asking, and that we'll push this the next 7 or so days, that I'm asking for 30 people. Now we're down to 28 people that would donate $175. And this will fill up this classroom with desks and chairs and supplies. Every year, we're adding a new grade level to our Legacy Christian Academy. This campus will be maxed out at P6, primary 6 at 6th grade. And then after that, they'll go off to secondary school, or what we call high school, or middle school and high school. But I'm asking for, you ready for this? I'm asking for 30 people, now 28, because producer Chad's going to do one, him and his wife, and I'm going to do one as well. I may do more, but let's just keep it at 28. Gifts of $175 to Rivers Promise. And here's the classroom. We're going to fill up with desks and chairs and supplies. And you say, well, the kids here would never go to school without us. And it's not like this is a day where you also have to bring a box of Kleenex and bring your crayons. They don't have anything. We provide all their supplies. And so we've got to get the supplies, not just for the classroom, but for the kids and their curriculums and all the stuff that they have to do. And you can help us, riverspromise.org. I'm asking for 28 more people. We're down to 28 that would give $175 as a one-time gift over the next couple of days. Pray about it. I asked you to pray about it yesterday. Feel connection to it and do it. But here's me in the studio, in the classroom, that we're going to stock just a few weeks ago. Go ahead. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy, and I am inside Legacy Christian Academy. This is one empty classroom we have left in this building, and next year, it's going to be filled with kids. It's going to become our 5th grade, P5, primary 5. Every year, we're adding a grade, and our P4 is full, so get ready. We're going to ask for your help here to help us fill this room with desks and all the supplies the 5th graders are going to need. So stand by, get ready. P5 coming soon. See the excitement in that camera? It's very exciting. P5, this is the room. That's the room we're going to be using. 5th graders going to be in there. We've already got the 5th graders. They just finished our 4th grade class. And I'll show you a new video that we have out tomorrow on that and the end of the school year party we had. Now, we showed you the kindergarten graduation. This was for the 1st through 4th graders. And now next year we'll have 5th graders. But we need your help. I need 28 more people. 28 more people that would give $175 as a one-time gift, and you're going to help buy a desk, you're going to buy a chair, and you're going to buy supplies for that room. Overall supplies, yes, that's going to be the craft supplies, the wall hangings, that's everything we need in that room. It's about $175 times 30. Producer Chad and his wife are going to do a desk and a chair and the $175. I'm going to do $175. Who else will join with producer Chad and I and make that donation? Again, think about it, pray about it. Some of you instinctively know I just need to get to your computer and do it. And by the way, hopefully by tomorrow we'll unveil the opportunity to give via Venmo. That's another way. But right now, just go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, hit donate, and the amount is $175. We appreciate anything coming in. Just put general greatest need. We'll know exactly what it's for. $175, 28 more people to help us at riverspromise.org to build those desks, the chairs, and stock that 5th grade classroom. We have a small window of opportunity. I have to get this done because every one of those desks are hand-built. Every one of those desks are handcrafted. There's not a desk store, not a Walmart to buy from, no Staples to have them delivered. We have to have them built on site in the classroom, and we need your help to do that. riverspromise.org. I need 28 more people, 28 more families, 28 more businesses, whatever that could be, 28 more donations of $175. Would you help us out today? We appreciate that. Producer Chad and his wife are going to do one. I'm going to do 175, and I wish you would do some to do that. Arloa says, I need someone to pair up with me to do half of that 175. See, she's thinking creatively. So in Arloa, and I get it, man, you don't feel led to do the whole amount, or you can't do the whole amount. I get it. Maybe you can do part of that amount. Maybe you put it out there like Arloa is. Who would do the other half of Arloa's 175? Someone will do it, Arloa. I promise you we'll get it done. We'll find someone that will do the other half. So you do what you feel led to do. If you don't feel led to do anything, that's okay too. I don't want to ever make this show about guilt and condemnation. We don't do that. It probably should be a better fundraiser if I did, but we don't do that. I want to just give you the opportunity to partner with us. And if that's something you feel the Lord telling you to partner with, then partner with us. And if not, then partner with somebody. Just don't be selfish. Maybe it's a veterans group. Maybe it's a pet group. Whatever it is, partner with someone and be generous to the best of your ability. Not everybody can be a prolific, huge amount of giver. But I look at the good book, I look at the Bible, and Jesus was very happy with the woman who gave a very small part, and other people gave grandiose amounts with a large flash and bang, and he appreciated the woman with this widow's mite. So do what you can. Somebody want to partner with Arloa, do the other half of that 175, just ping Arloa, ping us, and we'll let Arloa know that someone's doing it, but someone will do it. And again, 28 more people, and that would make it 27 and a half more people. If Arloa is going to do a half of one, 27 and a half more people to do the 175. We got a couple of days. I want you to contemplate it. I know it's a big ask. 175 is not easy for some of you. It's a rounding error. Some of you, that's a big deal. And I understand that. So if it is, then can you do a quarter of it, 25% of it? We just need 30 times 175. That stocks that classroom up. And we appreciate your contemplation and consideration. And we'll keep a list and try to let everybody know how we're doing on that. Producer Chad's doing one with his wife. I'm going to do one, and Arloa's looking for somebody to do a half, and I haven't checked to see what's coming in right now. So help us out. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. All right, real quick, let's do Meme Roulette to have some fun on the program. Tomorrow, I do want to get into the Secret Service. The Secret Service has announced some suspensions as we head into the 1 year past the first Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. I want to talk about that some tomorrow, but I don't have the globe, but let's go round and round the Whataburger Cup we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There's Pam Bondi on the Babylon Bee. She's explaining she was going to release the Epstein files, but then some pedophiles asked her not to. Maybe that's the explanation. It's as simple as that. I was going to release the Epstein files, but then the pedophiles called and said, don't do it. And I said, I can do it. There's got to be an explanation. I mean, it's on her desk. Now it's not. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Everything that's free is paid for by someone who works. This is true. No such thing as a free lunch. I was watching the Jesse Waters show on the plane last evening while I was flying and stuck and watching it. It was enjoyable to see these people saying how they're very upset that their Medicaid food stamp program is changing under the big new beautiful bill. Very upset about that change, because they can't buy junk food anymore. Listen, you were buying junk food and I was paying for it, and I'm fine with any changes to make your fat ass a little bit more healthy. Just me. Help looking out for you. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. My electricity bill came in today. I believe I got charged for sunlight, moonlight, streetlight. The light of the Holy Spirit, the light of the end, the light at the end of the tunnel. That's a big electric bill, huh? A lot of lights. That's how much it costs. My electric bill goes so high in the summer because I do keep my air conditioning on a setting called meat locker. Anybody comes to my house goes, yeah, this is a Texas cold. Yeah, we like it cold. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. A couple of more memes here today. Here we go. You got to see the photo of this, but we will release the Epstein list. Oh, we need more time to release the Epstein list. We have the Epstein list on our desk, and then dressed up in full clown regalia. What list? There is no list. There is no Epstein list. Say the clowns. All the clowns. The clowns. You think there's no Epstein list? Anybody believe that? Yeah, there's an Epstein list. Or Ghislaine Maxwell would be out of jail right now. They're covering it up, my friends. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There's Cash Patel standing at the podium with the caption, "We found that Jeffrey Epstein never existed." Yeah, they might as well. They've already said the Epstein list never existed, and we've heard about that for years. And so now they're going to say Jeffrey Epstein, that was not him. He never existed. It was a figment of our imagination. It's called gaslighting, my friends. It's called gaslighting. All right, let's do it again. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry. I want to remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. A great sponsor of the program. If you're looking to move, maybe you want to move down here to the great state of Texas. Sherry doesn't necessarily work in the state of Texas. She's that I-25 corridor. But if you want to get into Colorado from here, call Sherry. If you want to get to Texas from Colorado, call Sherry. She has a referral program. She can find someone that is of her quality and level right down here. She knows someone and she can refer you to them. But listen, if you want to make a transaction right along that I-25 corridor in Colorado from Denver to Fort Collins, Greeley, Berthoud, Broomfield, Loveland, all these places out there, Boulder, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Again, she goes into any real estate business transaction, relationship, thinking that she wants to earn the right, the trust to be your realtor for life. She's not looking for a one-time sale, one-time buy. She's looking to create a relationship of trust and help you achieve your real estate goals, which ultimately can create financial generational wealth. She wants to help you do that. And she also, my friends, will take a cut of her commissions. If you're a first responder or veteran, military folks, she wants to make it affordable for you to get into a home. She loves taking care of the seniors and the caretakers. She loves helping out with that, whether it's a buy or a sale. And also, she'll take a portion of her commissions and give it to the charity of your choice. And I appreciate her doing that as well. She's some people have directed some funds to go to Rivers Promise as a donation because they've used Sherry. Homeswithsherry.com. Reach out to her. You're thinking of buying, selling, or you need a referral out of state of Colorado. Homeswithsherry.com. Sherry Cree, great friend of the program, great friend of myself. She's been to Africa with us, seen our work there. But in the real estate world, I think there's goodness again, top of the notch. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and be sure to tell her that I, Jimmy Lakey, am talking about her on the program. All right, it's been an action-packed show. I'll be broadcasting once again here from outside of the state of Colorado. I'm on the road in the state of Texas. Yeah, I look tired. That was a long flight yesterday. Ray says, Jimmy, when my wife and I are in Fort Worth, we go to the Cotton Patch restaurant. Great family restaurant. I'm going to look that one up, Ray. I've heard of it, but I don't think I've eaten there. There's a Mexican food place I haven't been to in years. A friend reminded me of. If you get a chance, you need to go to Joe T. Garcia's, legendary in the state of Texas, over at the Fort Worth Stockyards. Not sure how much time I'm going to have, but always appreciate the recommendations. I've already made it to Whataburger. I was going to go there at 1 in the morning, but I decided that's probably not healthy. I woke up early for breakfast. That's good. It's a Diet Coke, I promise you. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you from the motherland, the state of Texas. God bless America. Don't forget, donate $175 if you can, or whatever amount you can. Help us stock that fifth grade classroom. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Until we meet again, God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.